Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here today with another video for you on this astrology channel, and today we're going to be looking at the asteroid Vesta through each of the houses. So if you've been following the channel and you like the content that I've been putting out, you can support me on a platform called coffee.com by buying me a coffee. And the support that you provide me with will go into purchasing tools and equipments that I need to use in order to make these YouTube videos for you guys, as well as put up birth chart readings. And we currently have an online astrology hub called Astrology for the Uranian Souls. If you're interested in connecting with me and other astrology enthusiasts out there, you can of course join us on this platform. The link to the platform will be in the description box below. So, Vesta, the eternal flame. Okay. The study of asteroid Vesta has been really eye-opening for me, and I'm really excited to be sharing this with you guys today. But first, in order to fully understand her effect in your natal chart, we're going to have to look at her quick snippet into the mythology of Vesta. And actually, there's not much that is said out there about the actual life of Vesta and kind of what goes on with her. But she is definitely a very important goddess when it comes to the ancient Romans and the ancient Greek, because she was considered to be the first Olympian to be born and the last to be reborn, because she was born from Saturn and Rhea, but then she was eaten up again, and so Zeus, who was the king of the gods, had to free her again from Saturn's stomach. So she was therefore the first and the last to be born and reborn. And that's why in the temple of Vesta, she represents the eternal flame, the sacred flame. Because, well, first of all, fire is an important symbol in human culture, because fire was the first element that human beings could actually control. Without fire, we don't have energy. Without fire, we can't survive. But there's also a deeper meaning to fire, which I want to address real quickly. I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. Is that when human beings were created, with regards to Greek mythology, there was a war going on between the Greek gods and the Titans, and one of the Titans was Prometheus, but he worked with the Greek gods in one way or another. And eventually the Titans were defeated, except for Prometheus. And he was given the task by Zeus to create human beings, as well as animals and all other creatures on Earth. But Zeus was strict. Zeus didn't want human beings to be equal to him, so he made sure that they were weak and didn't have much to survive on in the wilderness. But Prometheus was a bit of a rebel, so he decided to steal fire from the Olympians and give that to human beings so that they could survive again. But of course, he was punished for this, and then he was punished for eternity basically by Zeus. But anyway, so this is the importance of the symbol of fire, in which Vesta became the person to guard, and it was her symbol. So if you have fire going on in your fireplace, in the hearth, in the home, back in those days, it was considered that Vesta was there guarding over your house, your family. We can see how, fire came since the origin of humanities, as well as Vesta being the origin of the Olympians. So fire is that igniter, that spark, right? But there's also more to the story than that. Because in the Roman times, in the temple of Vesta, a few, specifically 6 female maidens and virgins would be selected from some of Rome's best and most prestigious families to become the priestess in the temple of Vesta in order to guard the sacred flame. And it was considered to be that, of course, these particular Vestal virgins, they had to remain a virgin because they had to conserve their energy and for the sacred and the purity of guarding this flame. And if one of them were to be caught breaking these rules, they would be buried to death. But at the same time, if the flames were to go out, it was a sign that Rome was in danger. So therefore, these Vestal virgins had to keep the flame going. So they devoted themselves for 30 years to tending to these flames, and the flame is actually the symbol of Vesta. But of course, after 30 years, they could go back into their real lives again and, you know, have a family and then have children as they wanted. But within those 30 years that they devoted their time to, they were, you know, cherished in Rome, as well as they had certain privileges that a lot of other kind of more commoners in Rome didn't have the privileges to. What we can take from this story is that, first of all, Vesta, ultimately, she kind of represents, in your chart, the ability to kind of garner energy within your body to be used for specific devotional purposes in order to transmute the energy. Oh, Kung Fu is feisty today. To have a transmutation of your energy, and it has to be done through either not engaging in sexual activity so that you can cultivate this energy in order to devote it to something else, or what I'm taking from this is that you could also use kind of transformative sexual energy as well. You can garner your energy into that. It does seem like with the lower vibration of the Vesta energy, it could mean that the sexual energy is being scattered in places where it can't lead to the union of the self, or it's being put into positions where there's no trust, meaning sex without feelings, or sex outside of particular marriages, because that breaks trust and that scatters energy. So I feel like using, you know, sexual energy for the shadow side of it leads to what in society can be viewed with regards to sex as being sinful, or sex as being dirty, or sex being a projection of your own fears or insecurities. So that is the low vibration of this energy. But once the sexual energy has been harnessed to particular devotional practices, which I'm going to kind of go through briefly with you guys, because these particular practices will affect which house Vesta is going to be in your chart. So the first one is to actually use the sexual energy for devotional sex, meaning that you employ it for something like tantric sex, meaning that we don't orgasm right away. We engage in sexual activity for a certain period of time to experience pleasure, love, unity with another person without having to orgasm, because orgasm also kind of scatters the sexual energy. It can be a form of healing, if you see what I mean. You know, I feel like this particular direction of sexual energy has a lot to do with the 8th house, of course, the 12th house, as well as the 2nd house. So now, the other way we can direct the sexual energy is through devotion that is not sexual. And these comes in the forms of different types of yoga. There are 5 types of yoga: Bhakti yoga, Hatha yoga, Gnani yoga, Raja yoga, and Karma yoga. And yoga, in its most purest form, is not a physical exercise that we employ and we can go to class and we can do yoga. Yoga in its purest form is about a way of life, a way of living your life. So the first type of yoga is Bhakti yoga, and that is living life based on love. So taking that sexual energy and devoting it to unconditional love for the world, unconditional love for the divine, integrating, working and living with your emotions and your heart in an open way, feeling love and feeling gratitude across all areas of your life. This is definitely a practice. It's not something that's going to come easy for a lot of us, right? And I feel like this type of yoga has a lot to do with the 5th house, the 8th house, the 4th house, as well as the 12th house, the 3 water houses. They have a lot to do with unconditional love, feeling with the heart, and the heart has to do with the 5th house as well. The second type of yoga is Hatha yoga. And Hatha yoga has a lot to do with balancing the physical body with the mental body. So of course, Hatha yoga is a little bit more physical, so you have to be engaged in some physical yoga itself or physical activity in order to work with Hatha yoga, to take that sexual energy and put it into Hatha yoga. And I feel like this particular type of yoga has to do with the first house, definitely, the second house, as well as the fifth house in astrology. So the third type of yoga is Gnani yoga. And Gnani yoga is considered to be intellectual based or wisdom based. It is taking that sexual energy and devoting it into understanding truth, releasing preconceived notions and beliefs that have been instilled within you that are not actually yours, kind of refreshing your belief systems into having some sort of paradigm shift with your understanding and awareness. So I feel like this particular type of yoga definitely has to do with the 9th house, as well as the 11th house, and it could also be the 7th house. The fourth type of yoga is Raja yoga, and Raja yoga has to do with the mind. It's a mental type of yoga, not intellectual, but mental, meaning that Raja yoga is about concentration of the mind, discipline of the mind, being aware of your desires and where that's coming from, being aware of your breathing, and being able to channel your energy, that sexual energy, into something for a long period of time through focused concentration. And that includes meditation, definitely. So I feel like this type of yoga has to do with the 3rd house, the 4th house, as well as the 6th house. Oh, I think Hatha yoga also has to do with the 6th house, by the way. Yes. So the last type of yoga is karma yoga. So karma yoga has to do with humanitarian efforts, integrating your service into the community, maybe even doing community yoga itself, or doing good for the community without feeling superior inside over other people, because then you've got the ego involved there. Yes, it has this vibe of activism and humanitarian spirit to it. So I feel like this type of yoga has to do with, of course, the 11th house, the 6th house. It can also be the 10th house, the 7th or the 1st house as well, because that's like a kind of an action-orientated, giving to community type of a vibe. Basically, what happens when you direct the sexual energy into these yogas, as well as the tantric sexuality that I've mentioned previously, is that the energy becomes centered and focused, and it allows you ultimately to transmute the sexual energy into a union with the self. So you become basically selfless, or you have no self. You're aware of the fact that you are nothing. Kind of like the Vesta virgins, right? Who really understood this, that you are nothing really. You're a dot in the bigger cosmos of life. So now we're going to get to Vesta through the houses. So of course, the first house in astrology has to do with the identity, the physical body, and the self. So if you could, with Vesta in the first house, direct that sexual energy and focus it into particular goals that you have in your life that are concentrated on either the development of your physical body, meaning finding that balance between the body and the mind, with regards to Hatha yoga that I mentioned previously, Hatha yoga way of life that I mentioned previously, or it can be through the pursuit of your independent goals and objective and something that you'd like to advocate for in life, some form of fighting spirit within you. And sometimes being a spiritual warrior or spiritual advocacy can be a really good way to direct this energy. And that can be with regards to the karma yoga lifestyle that I mentioned previously. But if this energy is being used at the lower vibration and you're scattering your energy wrongly, it can definitely lead to various sexual activity, because it's the first house, right? The house of Aries, the sex, that's not satisfying, or even preventing yourself in one way or another unconsciously, or having setbacks with regards to being able to achieve tantric sexuality. But of course, it's also a great placement for having that tantric sexual experience as well, because it is the first house of the physical body. Too much devotion and dedication in this case can lead to you excluding relationships out of your life in one way or another by being too absorbed in your own goals, and that is when the ego is involved in your devotional practice, and that is no longer living a yoga lifestyle. So if you have Vesta in the second house, you can take that sexual energy and direct it and devote it into balancing of your external physical life with your internal mental or emotional life. With regards to Hatha yoga lifestyle that I mentioned previously, so this can be in terms of being able to outsource the right type of resources, meaning money, the way that you make money, the way that you have a house, the way that you buy things, the things that you spend your money on. Is that balanced with your internal values, your internal sense of self-worth? And how do you achieve that balance? This is going to be something that your energy can really be put into and devoted into to find that union with yourself. But of course, if you're scattering this energy all over the place with regards to the low vibration of Vesta, it could mean that you could be a little bit maybe greedy, devoting a lot of that energy into the outer external resources and neglecting the values and the self-worth inside or the self-love inside. Because if you're garnering a lot of money and it's not based on your values or your self-worth, you're gonna still feel lack, because you're putting out energy of lack, that you don't have enough inside. So you're gonna search outside for something more, and that's gonna, with regards to the law of attraction, still continue the feeling of lack. So manifestation is important with this Vesta placement. You can manifest, but you have to manifest from feeling good, from self-love, from feeling worthy, and from feeling abundant already within yourself. And then those intentions, they will come back into your life as prosperity and abundance. So if you have Vesta in the third house, you can direct that sexual force and sexual energy into a dedication or a devotion to the workings of your mind. So you could engage in some form of studies for long hours into something that you were really interested in, and then you can reach a certain level of understanding through the data and the information that you read and that you collect, and communicate and share that in a very helpful way to other people. And that leads you to this sense of union with yourself. But if you're scattering this energy all over the place with regards to the lower vibration of Vesta, you may be studying way too many things for your own good. And this is a Gemini house, right? So you're going to be interested in various different things that you can't come to a feeling of unity or solidity with regards to the data and information that you've been gathering, and your communication is all over the place, and people may not respond to you in the way that you would like to respond with regards to your ideas and opinions, and therefore it can lead to you feeling like you're not as smart or as intelligent as you really are. So yes, this particular Vesta placement is associated with, as I mentioned previously, the Raja Yoga lifestyle. So if you have Vesta in the fourth house, you can take that sexual energy and sexual force and devote it and dedicate it to the cultivating a sense of emotional stability, so that you're going to be able to offer love, unconditional love, to other people and to the world. Having space where you can nurture yourself, devoting your energy into a private space where you can give yourself all the love, all the comforts, will allow you to come back out into the world with love for other people, because you're just so satisfied and nourished inside. And food may be another way that you can nourish other people with this placement. You may be devoted to, delicacies that's really satisfying for yourself, done with love, and for other people as well. You may be a really great hostess, inviting people into your home, giving them a space where they could eat and socialize with each other and just love each other. You're all about love. But also, if you could have a space for yourself where you can devote love to the divine as well, in whichever way that means for you, that's how you can use this Vesta energy. But of course, if you're scattering this energy all over the place, it means that you may be acting on defensiveness or insecurities and really not giving as love as you could be giving, because you're scattering your energy into the fears of your past. Because generally with this Vesta placement, there may be lots of obligations while you were growing up. You had to be mature really early in your life before you were ready to be mature. And you need time to give yourself space to nourish yourself. If you don't, you'll be acting on this energy. The energy will still be kind of scattered into your past, if you see what I mean. Scattered into, I didn't get this in my past, so now I can't really give love. I didn't get enough in my past. I had to take on too much responsibilities. I grew up too fast, so now I really can't be as unconditionally loving as I could for you, because I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know what it's like to give that to myself. So this particular Vesta placement, of course, has to do with Bhakti Yoga lifestyle that we talked about previously, as well as Raja Yoga lifestyle, because that is about discipline. This one has to do with that discipline of making sure that you are having a routine and taking time for yourself, doing the self-nourishment that you need to do. If you have Vesta in the 5th house, you can take that sexual energy and sexual force and devote it and direct it into your creative, personal self-expression, your inner childlike expression. Things that you feel in your heart, you have a lot of passion for. Get into the creative process. Work on it. Find that place of joy, your hobbies, and keep doing it. You're very devoted to your hobbies with this Vesta placement. You can also direct this energy into creative, tantric, sexual expressions. One, like we talked about previously, where there is slow enjoyment of the sexual activity leading to slow orgasm rather than a quick orgasm. Also, the creative way in which you can use your body for maybe dance or some form of exercise or sports. But ultimately, it's just your hobby. It's what you love. Do that. If you're scattering this Vesta energy all over the place with regards to the low vibration of this energy, you may be scattering your energy too far beyond yourself, meaning that you are, well, first of all, you could be doing way too much play, way too much kind of fun sexual activities that there's really no intimacy or no union with the self. Or you could be on the opposite end, meaning that you have invested way too much energy into your creative efforts that it becomes an obsession, that you are needing recognition for your creative efforts, or you are needing appreciation for your creative efforts, that it no longer is fun for you, that it's no longer coming from this innocent place in your heart anymore, but it's coming from fear that you're not going to be recognized or appreciated. So yes, this particular Vesta placement has to do with the Bhakti Yoga lifestyle of working with your heart, as well as the Hatha Yoga lifestyle of balancing the physical body with the mental body, and of course the Tantric sexual lifestyle that we talked about all of this previously before at the beginning of the video. If you have Vesta in the 6th house, you could take that sexual focused, that sexual energy and direct it and devote it into your work, into the type of service, true service. True service is not about doing the dirty work and working overtime. That's not true service. True service is about offering something that can make a change in the world that other people can't see, that only you can see, that you are being the change you want to see in the world. That is real service. Being able to use your mind, finding that mind-body-soul connection. This is the ultimate theme of the 6th house. How do you balance the mind with the body and the soul? Meaning, how do you think positively, feel positively, and eat, exercise, have a routine for your body that is positive for you, doing that together and finding that balance and see how one bleeds into the other. But of course, if you're scattering this Vesta energy kind of all over the place, then you can run into the risk of offering too much help, that you are neglecting your mind-body-soul connection, or devoting too much into the mind-body-soul connection that you begin to analyze yourself, you begin to criticize yourself, you begin to want to become a bit of a perfectionist, which you'll never be, because nobody's really perfect. You're made to devote yourself to being a healer, and if you are too busy, shall we say, kind of nitpicking yourself, then you've taken the energy away from being able to offer healing to other people. Healing comes in the moment. It is spontaneous. You don't have to perfect it. When somebody needs the healing, anything that you can give in that moment that's gonna save their life is worth it. So of course, this particular Vesta placement has to do with Raja Yoga, because it's that mind-body-soul balance, that discipline of routines that you have to put in, as well as, of course, Karma Yoga lifestyle, where you are needing to be of service to the community, giving to other people, a more humanitarian spirit. If you have Vesta in the 7th house, you can direct, okay, this is actually kind of an, I feel, one of those paradox or ironic places to put Vesta into, because, like, you know, Vesta is supposed to be that, how you can take that sexual energy and devote it into either tantric sexuality, which is not represented by the 7th house, or other activities, right? But now it's like you're taking this Vesta energy and you're devoting and directing it into your relationships. So this Vesta placement can make it so that you are focused and directed towards the committed aspect of your relationships, any type of relationships, meaning upholding contracts, making sure the relationship lasts, making sure that it lasts over time, making sure that both people in the relationship are getting an equal balance of what they want and need. And that requires a lot of effort, Vesta in the 7th house people. So sometimes this Vesta placement can also make it really good for you to devote your energy into business partnerships or other relationships outside of your romantic relationship, or other relationships outside of your one-to-one business relationships. That can be a really good way to use this particular Vesta energy. But if this energy is being scattered all over the place, it can mean that you are too directed into making sure that a commitment lasts, a relationship lasts, at the expense of an unfulfilling sexual life, or unfulfilling, financial sharing, unfulfilling or toxic behaviors. So yes, this Vesta placement can lead to codependency, because you're wanting to keep that commitment going at the expense of other areas of a particular relationship. So that's kind of like an escape from really confronting certain conflicts that occurs in your relationship. This Vesta placement can also make it so that you can really dedicate your energy really well into conflict solving in relationship, love, romantic, business partnerships. But in order to solve these particular conflicts, you have to put it out on the table, not escaping. You see what I mean? Not kind of sweeping under the rug so that the relationship remains, but it's really putting it on the table, talking about it openly and discussing it. So this particular Vesta placement, of course, has to do with Gani Yoga, because it's really about truth, understanding truth through relationships with another person, as well as Raja Yoga, because it's really about being, when you have to put conflicts out on the table and negotiate diplomatically, this is a mental thing. This is an objective thing where you have to use your mind and your logic and your rationale, direct it into that particular type of concentration rather than using your emotions. As well as, of course, Karma Yoga, when it comes to more of directing the energy into businesses that could serve the betterment of humanity. So So if you have Vesta in the 8th house, this is like the place where Vesta likes to be, as well as the 6th house, both of these houses, because Vesta has to do with that sexual energy. So this particular placement makes it so that you can be someone who really can take that sexual energy and put it into tantric sexuality. This is like the ultimate place for that. To put it into a sexual activity where you can find union with another person and union with yourself, meaning that maybe you also have tantric sex with yourself. You have tantric massages for yourself. You also get into that more sensual nature with yourself to find that union with your sexual energy. You can also direct your Vesta energy into joint finances, resources that are balanced between you and a particular person that you're sharing your resources with, as well as outsourcing money, meaning that, with regards to, let's say, a job, you have different avenues in which money is coming into you. Oh, if you can devote your energy into something like that, you can make a lot of money. So, but if you're scattering this energy all over the place, you can be engaging in sexual relations that leads to traumas or leads to abuse because there's too much focus and obsession with it that you put your whole heart and soul into it and you take a risk. You see what I mean? But at the same time, it can also lead to sexual life where it's really hard for your partner to fulfill your sexual needs because you're really trying to get to that tantric phase. And if your partner's not into that and they're kind of just more into like sex to orgasm, right? We can see an issue here because Vesta, the sacred flame, the eternal flame, is in the house of sex. So yes, so this Vesta placement, of course, is going to have to do with the tantric sex that we talked about previously, as well as the bhakti yoga lifestyle, meaning that you are you're working with emotions, you're working with trust and feeling, and love, true love, and that vulnerability that you can have with another person. That's the bhakti yoga lifestyle we talked about previously. So if you have Vesta in the 9th house, you can take that sexual energy and direct it and devote it into higher studies, trying to seek and understand the truth about life, ultimately letting go of old paradigms, old preconceived notions and beliefs about everything, and having a complete paradigm shift. But of course, if you are, scattering this Vesta energy all over the place, there can be like this energy where you don't believe in anything. You study different types of beliefs and religions, and your life, there's no moralities in your life. The natal has to do with moralities. So that can happen, or you may be too obsessed with one particular thoughts and belief systems that it can lead to a bit of a fanatic type of way of being or way of thinking, where you want to impose your beliefs onto others and kind of convert them into the way that you think and believe. But like we said, with the highest level of the Gnani Yoga lifestyle, you let go of preconceived notions and biases, meaning at the moment you are having an intellectual conversation with somebody else, like let's say it's a debate, you listen fully to their truth. And you know that there is a golden thread that binds all religions together, all cultural beliefs and customs. There's a golden thread of love, of karma, of the need to unite that's binding all of it together. Everybody has a different path to get where they need to go, but we're all trying to get to the same place. So you can be a true person who really understands with this placement. It's also a really good placement for vision, meaning that your ideals you can work to manifest the ideals into the reality. Big dreams, but it's kind of a dream that's coming from your personal vision based on what you believe. You can make that happen. So if you have Vesta in the 10th house, You can take that sexual energy and direct it and devote it into your career. But this has more to do with your contribution. A reputation, you can build up a reputation of somebody who is a contributor to the world, a public person who is respectable in the world without the ego involved. And that's going to be pretty hard. But ultimately, when you're trying to build up this particular reputation or image, if you're focused on the image itself, that's the ego being involved, right? And that's not Vesta style. But if you're focusing on building this image based on the outcome, meaning what do you want to achieve? What do you want to give to the world? What changes do you really want to make? The image is going to follow. The reputation is going to follow. So I feel like this particular Vesta placement has to do with, of course, the karma yoga, where you are giving to the world at large, but also with the Raja Yoga lifestyle, because this requires discipline. You have to work hard with this Vesta placement. You have to have integrity in the process. If you are trying to get shortcuts, in achieving what you want to achieve, especially if Vesta is conjunct the midheaven and you're taking shortcuts here and there, that is not going to lead to your fulfillment. It could be the scattering of this energy. And you're scattering this Vesta energy. You're taking shortcuts to get where you need to go, but you don't actually get where you need to go, because where you need to go is really high. And if you're taking shortcuts, you're following other people's path, you'll get here and you feel like you succeeded, but wait, you haven't succeeded. Because your journey is your journey. The harder it is, the taller that mountain is, the more energy it's going to take, the more devotion it's going to take. But also when you scatter this Vesta energy, it can also mean that because it's taking so long for you to get there, you may give up. You may go on a new path, or you may criticize yourself, feel guilty that you're not there yet, and go into negative thought patterns because the mountaintop for you is really like Mount Everest, and that's going to take a lot of work, a lot of dedication. You're going to get there. Don't give up. When you have Vesta in the 11th house, it can mean that you can take that sexual energy and you can direct it and devote it into your networking circles, into your hopes, dreams, and wishes in life. So it's a really good placement for making your dreams come true, for having a goal and objective and then pursuing with it and making that come true. The ideals and the hopes that you want to make real, it has to be based on a progress of the future. It's always going to be something that is a bit more futuristic, and that you may not get the recognition that you want or the fame that you want in this life because it's in the future. But of course, you may, because we are moving into the age of Aquarius, right? So there's a lot of futuristic thinkers out there that you can definitely find a community in, network with, change other people's lives through that. So if you're scattering this Vesta energy, it can cause you to have one or the other, meaning that you have a lot of friends, you have a lot of acquaintances, a lot of people that you know, but you're not getting to the goal that you would like to have with regards to your personal, individual goals, because the energy of the 11th house and Uranus and Aquarius is about being an individual in a group. So that's being in the group without the individuality. Or you could have the opposite, meaning that you are quite an individual. You're going after your goals and dreams at the expense of your acquaintances and friends, and then you don't actually end up getting where you need to go, because your goals and dreams may need the support of acquaintances and a larger network of people. So there can be limitations and blockage with friendships and interactions in the society because you are too much devoted to your own individuality and you're kind of like feeling alienated and left out. So of course this Vesta placement has to do with the karma yoga. Of course, definitely karma yoga lifestyle of serving the community, of progressing humanity, but also the Gani yoga lifestyle, because this Vesta placement also has the ability to understand the collective awareness and consciousness and to see the truth in that, and to have to be able to align yourself with particular systems of thoughts that are futuristic. So it's an intellectually based type of a Vesta placement. So if you have Vesta in the 12th house, you can take that sexual energy of Vesta, you can take that sexual energy and kind of devote it and direct it to your spiritual growth, meaning that you have periods of retreat and introspection where you study yourself very deeply, you study your psyche very deeply, you feel yourself very deeply until you come to a place where you can feel connected to the cosmos and to everything around you. But it's going to take a lot of time, because when you do the introspective work, there will be issues of, past life suffering or previous childhood suffering that come up that you may need to purge from, that you may need to heal from. And the process of spiritual self-healing leads to the self-love, which leads to the universal love that you ultimately would like to devote yourself to. The unconditional love for everything and everyone. The ability to forgive without bypass. Forgiving without bypass means that you forgive with understanding, and you kind of know the boundaries of forgiveness. You can forgive, but it's not that you have to forgive at the expense of yourself. Do you see what I mean? So that's the boundaries of forgiveness. So, however, if you're scattering this Vesta energy all over the place with regards to the lower vibration of this energy, you may find that there's chaos within your life. And the chaos is coming from an internal chaos, because you could be, first of all, involved in spiritual bypass, right? Because spiritual bypass is kind of like getting into spiritual practices without knowing why you're getting into it, or without doing the internal work, because spiritual is coming from the spirit, and there's a spirit in all of us that we have to get in touch with. So it's the neglection of the self before or for a spiritual cause or practice. But we have to, in order to know how to transcend the ego, right, to be spiritual, we have to know what the ego is in all of us. We have to look at the ego in the eye and then know what part of ourselves we should transcend and work on. So if we don't see our ego and then we want to simply be egoless, then we're not really transcending our ego, because the ego is still there. And we all have an ego, do you see what I mean? So then when you do that, you can experience chaos, because you may be tricked by specific people that don't have the best interest for you, but you're following along with them. Or you may feel that it's chaos because you reach this phase of disappointment when the fog of the 12th house clears up. You may realize that you haven't developed at all, and then there's this anxiety that comes up once the fog clears, the illusions clear. So that's kind of something that can happen with this, as well as experiencing fears of exposure. Because when you fall deeply into the hermit phase, right, of the introspection, and you get so close and intimate with yourself and your soul, it's really hard to come back out into the world and to be in this time and space dimension, and to not feel sensitive with everything that you see. That can be hard, because you're ultimately clearing your energy, and you can go back out into the world and be sensitive, like hypersensitive with people in your environment very easily. So it's hard, as well as opinions of other people, or really bringing your inner talents out or inner gifts out into the world once you've discovered what that is. That can be hard, because it brings that sensitivity when you are digging very deep into yourself. So that's what can happen when you're kind of scattering this Vesta energy. But ultimately, with the correct kind of spiritual development and faith that there's order in the chaos, faith that ultimately, with regards to Bhakti Yoga lifestyle that we talked about previously, when you're putting out love and faith into the world and what you do, the universe gives it back to you. You are loved every day by the universe. You are loved every day by everyone that you come across because you can give unconditional love to them. Alright guys, so that's going to be my interpretation of Vesta through the houses as well as Vesta herself. Do comment below and let us know which house your Vesta is placed in and what has been your experience with your Vesta placement. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. If you already subscribed, thank you very much for coming along. I do birth chart readings, synastry, and relationships. All the information is on my website and you can check that out. And yes, I'll see you very soon, beautiful souls. Bye!